Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home. Welcome to Strong Dads. Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson and Kyle Crawford bringing you another great show. Man, I love what we got going on today. You should be intimidated and scared today, Kyle. You know that?
Bro, I'm just saying. I'm thinking Tom and I here. We're gonna
Wait. Don't be
we're
recruiting.
Let people's elbow down.
No. Don't be recruiting already. Yeah. I brought in the big guns, so
right,
you get me any lip today.
Right.
You're going down, brother.
It's nice that you have to bring backup because you're just my just very being just threatens you.
You do. You intimidate me. Your presence intimidates me. All right, enough of that silliness. We can't wait to get started today. We got a great topic and we got a great guest today. We have Officer Lieutenant Tom Moore joining us today from the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. Tom has spent nearly his entire career in police work. He began with the United States Air Force as an MP, and then he went on to work for some local police departments in Aurora and Greendale, Indiana. He moved on to serve at the Indiana Police Academy as an officer in command and in charge of the Tier 2 Basic Training Program. He's coordinator of the Physical Training Program, Physical Tactics Instructions, as well as a drill instructor for the basic course. Tom carries numerous certifications in tactics, self-defense, spray and taser, strategies and tactics, and patrol stops. As if that wasn't even enough, he's also a CrossFit Level 1 trainer, a kettlebell instructor, and might have even been Mr. Southern USA back in 1994.
Yeah,
I remember those days.
I'll say I remember them too, Merle.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I was 6, 7. I was 7 years old. I remember those days.
That doesn't make me feel old.
No, not at all. Not at all. But make no mistake about it, Lieutenant Tom Moore, he could kick your butt, Kyle. Tom, thanks for joining us on Strong Dad Show.
I'm excited. Very excited to be here.
So, a couple of things. We invited Tom in because it's no secret that over the past several years, police work have been under the microscope of the public at large. And part of Kyle and I's reach has always been we do not want to spend a whole lot of time complaining and whining about circumstances.
Sure.
We want to uncover concern, but we want to really get to the facts or talk about how do we solve. What is solution? Yep. All right. And so that's why we reached out and just are open the opportunity, Tom, for you to be able to come in and tell us what really does happen in the police world, in the training world. You know, give us the best of what happens to prepare an officer to get ready to go do the stuff that we just take for granted.
Sure.
All right.
Yep.
So, yeah, we're just looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think
I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited, show.
Yeah. We better pay a few bills first.
We should. And before we do, I have to say that the introduction that Merle just gave is in total. He's just preparing himself. He's got to butter Tom up here to ensure that Tom just doesn't reach over there and just give him a knuckle sandwich right there.
Just a little fear. I don't want to.
His fist in your nose are going to have a conversation.
I don't want to tick this guy off, man.
Anyways, yeah. Strong Dads. We would love to thank Crimer's Beer House for coming alongside of us. Really do appreciate them down on Route 128. Go check them out. Tell Mark that we sent you down there. Go get a good meal, a really cool environment. Got to check out the restroom. The men's restroom.
I posted that picture several shows back.
So,
they have a urinal like no other urinal.
It's pretty cool.
It's a half keg of beer that he's cut in half and turned it into a urinal, and it's pretty sweet.
Nice.
It's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so go check out Crimer's Beer House. Really do appreciate those guys.
Also, want to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside Strong Dads or Rock Solid Families.
We even have it back here.
I know. I need all the props I can get. We just want to thank Casey for coming alongside alongside of us and just giving us the opportunity to put out great content and shows like this and guests like this. So do us a favor, go down and tell Casey thank you and just support his work as he supports our community.
Absolutely.
All right. So, Tom, you've been in police work for a long time. Even in the military, that's kind of, I think, where you started up, right?
Correct.
As an MP. Just a couple of things like, why are you going to police work? Like, I came from the teaching world, and all the time people are like, why would you go into teaching?
Well, honestly, Merle, I kind of fell into it. I went into the Air Force really thinking I was going to do a different type of job.
Yeah.
And then by circumstance found myself, labeled as a law enforcement specialist. And honestly, and I'm probably a little different than most police officers that you talk about, even firemen. Hey, this is something I've always wanted to do.
Yeah.
As a young man or as a young woman, I never really had that, and found myself in the Air Force as a very young man in that career. It was very interesting. And then when I got out of the Air Force and then came back home, there was an opportunity that presented itself at Aurora, and then found myself there working as a police officer, and then things just took off from there. I really liked the training aspect of it and worked the road for several years, and then the opportunity came up at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy to be a full-time instructor, and I was lucky enough to get that position, and I've been there now for 18 years at the academy.
Okay.
So kind of seen some different trends, things happening in the training aspect of law enforcement. And that's basically how I got started in a nutshell.
So how does the translation from military police correlate into civilian police as far as, do you have to go through a whole new training? Is that a whole new set of training that you have to?
Yes, it's a whole new set of training. In the military, you're dealing with the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the UCMJ. Then as a civilian law enforcement professional, you're dealing with statutes and
Sure.
civil criminal law, which is different than the military. And tactics are different, and a lot of things are different. So you have to make that transition. So there's a big difference in responsibilities and
Sure.
tactics and laws themselves.
So is that where you kind of found that niche that you really like about the training aspect? Was that military training, or is it the civilian side?
It was the civilian side.
Okay, gotcha.
I was really drawn to the training aspect just because, trying to make yourself better. Not only in police
Love
work,
it,
but in different things. So always looking for something to get better, and it goes back to different things that I've done, and I'm just kind of drawn to training. So that's what I found myself,
Gotcha.
and that's where I'm at now.
Yeah. So when we talk about training, I know there's two aspects of training, at least in my mind, that I saw some of your credentials on and stuff. One is kind of the physical training, everything from fitness and taking care of yourself, that kind of thing. And then tactics training, how to handle a police stop or approaching somebody. So there's two very different worlds. Do you cover both of those?
Yeah, I'm lucky enough to dabble in both. From the physical aspect, obviously police officers, any first responders need to be in good physical condition.
Did you hear that, Kyle? Did you just hear what he said? Yeah. He's naturally in somewhat of shape, but it's going to catch up to him.
It might. My Dr. Peppers and coffees one day will come knocking.
The only thing he doesn't do is smoke, and I'm just waiting for him to come in one day and say, "Hey, guess what? I took up smoking."
I'll try it out. See what
happens.
Oh, yeah. So the physical fitness side of it, obviously, I deal with new officers for the most part coming into the profession. So we're laying that foundation, trying to make it become a habit once they leave the academy. We all know that's a struggle.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, being with you guys, and we're keeping it real.
Yeah.
We see police officers that some don't look good in the uniform, some do. It's factual that the better shape you're in, it just makes the job a little easier.
Right.
From a fitness standpoint, from a longevity of life standpoint, to having to put your hands on somebody if you need to make the arrest and not running out of gas. And there's so many benefits to being in good physical condition. So we really try to push that. And then on the opposite side, like you said, from a tactical standpoint, there's so much to dive into there because our academy is 15 weeks long, and boy, we'd like to have a lot more time.
Yeah, you could. You could double that.
You could double that and still never have enough. Yeah. And there's a lot of different aspects to the training.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about more specifically right now, like who you train, because I have. You said Indiana Police Academy versus like a state academy, right? So who do you train? Who comes to this academy that you work at?
Yeah, it's a great question. Indiana's a little bit different than a lot of states out there where we still have, for the most part, a centralized academy. So we train specifically local city officers and county officers for the most part. So it ranges from Jeffersonville. Officers will come from as far as Jeffersonville all the way up to South Bend or Steuben County up in the corner of Indiana. They're required to come to the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy in Plainfield for their training. Now, the Indiana State Police also train at the same facility.
Okay.
However, they have their own set of instructors or cadre, and their program is separate from ours.
Okay.
So we train local city officers, county officers, gaming agents will come,
Okay.
hospital police, Indiana State Excise will go through our program, as well as the Indiana Conservation Officers. They also have some of their own training, but they're required to take the 15-week academy course. So for the most part, and there's a few, like Indianapolis has their own academy, but I would say 90 to 95% of all police officers in the state of Indiana will come through the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy.
That are not state police officers.
Right, correct.
Right. So is there a significant difference in training for state police officers versus the city police in the areas that you cover?
Yeah, the state academy for the state troopers is a longer course.
Okay.
And one of the reasons for that is because the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy, we are teaching a lot of different agencies.
Right.
So we have to be kind of general in our training, whereas the state troopers have recruits that have not been hired. They don't have a job yet. They have to actually complete the state trooper academy.
Gotcha.
And they can dive into how Indiana State Police want to train their own people.
Okay.
So they can get very specific to their own policies, to how they want to run things, whereas the other side, our side of the house, we're dealing with multiple jurisdictions, and we can't dive into specifically their policies and procedures. We're just teaching them the basic training.
And so you're training everybody kind of the same way, where the state could take guys and say, hey, we're going to zero in on this particular area or whatever, more so.
Absolutely.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Gotcha.
One thing you had said, which, man, the idea that you're teaching, you have certain requirements that you have to teach, these police officers to come. But what you had said is the basics, right? You're teaching the basics, and we find this all the time in the fire service that our academy in Dayton is the basics.
Yes.
And then you get out there, and it's essentially on the officer or on the firefighter to continue their training, to seek out additional trainings, to better themselves. You're in the training world. You obviously know the benefits of keeping your skills and making sure you're the best police officer out there, right? And so I think that's a great starting point to realize that you see a lot of officers that come through your academy for the whole state, correct? And I think it's a great point to start, that when we talk about the challenges and the nuances and the things that go on in the police world, obviously you guys are under a microscope right now. It's crazy. But I think it's important to note that these police officers are going out there. At the end of the day, they are human. And
Yes.
we are just men and women that are called to serve. We're serving the public. But I think it's a great point to start that, man, because anytime there's a story with a police officer in the news, it's always like, they had 6 months on the job, right? And they always want to point out how long you've been doing the job. And I think it's a great place to start that, man, when you get out of the academy, you're at the base level. In every profession, you have to start somewhere, right?
Yes.
You have to start somewhere. There's going to be failures that happen in every profession, but man, it's on the individual to take that and learn from it and continue their training. So I think it's a great point you said, is the basics.
It is the basics, and to your point, Kyle, once you graduate the academy, you go back. Every agency may do things a little bit different. Their field training program, you may have one jurisdiction that has a very long, where he or she's riding with another officer for a long period of time before they're cut loose on their own.
Yeah.
Or you get to a smaller jurisdiction, it's like, hey, you graduate the academy, here you go.
Yeah.
And you're out there by yourself. And if those officers aren't continuously looking for additional training on their own, sometimes you can fall behind. So, we all deal, whether you are in a first responder or in the corporate world, dealing with budgets and manpower, and it's a never-ending struggle, regardless of what business you're in. And law enforcement and first responder work is no different.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
Now, does a state, do you do continuing education for the officers throughout the state, or is it just a basic level for you guys?
We also have in-service training available. But our primary mission is basic training.
Yep.
But yes, we do have the in-service classes as well.
So, we're out in 15 weeks, but, when would you start to feel like, as you actually being a police officer or a firefighter, when would you actually start to feel confident of, I can run my patrol. I know what I'm doing. Does that take another year? Does that take 10 years? We talk about 10,000 hours for somebody to be competent in something, or a professional, an expert.
Yes.
How long before you say, you know what, that guy's just solid. He knows.
Well, I'm just speaking for myself, and Kyle, you may have your different opinion, but that is a great question. And my personal opinion is, I would say from my standpoint, about 3 to 5 years. Yeah. And the reasoning behind that is, getting out of the academy, there are so many things additionally you have to learn. Mm-hmm. And one is just being a good communicator.
Yeah.
Because as a police officer, my business as a patrolman, or if you're out there working the street, you're dealing with so many people with so many different types of situations that you have to be a very good communicator, because that's what we do.
Yes.
We're, most of the time, regardless of what the media may portray, 97% of the time as a police officer, you're just showing up to a call, taking information and talking to people. So you have to be a good communicator. So it takes a while to develop those skills. And the smaller things behind the scenes, like if I do a report, every jurisdiction, every prosecutor, depending on where you work, may want things a little different, what they want in their report. So it takes a while, and I'm picking the brains of veteran officers on how they do things, and, different accident reports and what I need to put in my paperwork. So my answer to your question for me is about 3 to 5 years before I would really feel comfortable, because I'm looking back at my own career when I worked the street, how I would handle a call, and I'm sure in education or whatever you do, how I handled a call year 1, if I had that same exact call year 10, I would probably handle a little bit different. Not saying the outcome would be different, but maybe how I communicated those things.
Absolutely, yeah.
And as a first-year teacher, if you got 10 years on, you may run your classroom a little bit different because you learned so much. And same with you in your line of work.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great point, because in the first responder world, as obviously you very well know, like every situation is different. You're never going to have the same traffic stop. You're never going to have the same foot chase, anything like that. In the fire world, like every fire presents itself a little bit different. But I love what you were saying, at 3 to 5 years, because you've learned the skills and abilities to adapt to those certain situations. So for us, like I've made mention on this show before, like we'll be going to a fire, and the guy's been on for a year, like he can't even figure out how to put his helmet on, right? Like, not that he doesn't know how, but just he gets overtaken with adrenaline and emotions. Where the guy's been on for 5-10 years, he's like, all right, we got this. Calm down. We're good here.
Yes.
And it's not that he's seen that exact fire before, but that he just knows how to adjust and adapt, and the skills and abilities that he's learned, he can use those to whatever circumstance he's going to.
He understands his emotions, and he keeps his emotions in check. And I think, that is such a key thing, especially in first responder world.
Yeah.
I mean, in my work that I do with marriage and family coaching, 90% of the challenges that come into a marriage are because people do not understand what their emotions are doing in that relationship, and they're letting the emotions dictate the thought versus letting the thought dictate what you're going to allow your emotions to do. And that is a practice. And some are faster to recognize it and to get it, but some, it's all about pounding square pegs into round holes all day long. They're going to just fight it and fight it and fight it and get more frustrated. So, but with that being said, I want part of our show here to be about letting the people know, like, how officers are actually trained, like what areas, because I think there's a lot of people out there that make assumptions like, well, they should know how to do this, or you'd think they'd be trained in that. How are officers trained? What areas are they trained in? You mentioned communication, but what about, traffic stops? What about where are they trained? What areas?
Yep. A lot of topics, many topics in a short amount of time. And
so it is Cliff Notes versions on a lot of different things.
There's a lot
of
things.
For you younger people out there, a Cliff Note version is like a very shortened version. You and I had Cliff Notes. He doesn't even know what Cliff Notes are.
I have them online.
That's awesome. Obviously, dealing with mental illness, as officers and first responders being called to those challenges. So you're dealing with, the challenges of dealing with people with mental illness, report writing, how to deal with conflict, de-escalation techniques, both verbally and from a physical standpoint, learning the law. Both criminal law and traffic law is a big portion of the academy, because if you don't know what to enforce, how are you going to go out there and do your job?
Right. And especially that's a bit of a moving target, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean, it changes. Well, this week we are arresting, next week we won't be.
Absolutely. And officers are in service, a couple times a year on different changes. The laws changed all the time.
Sure.
So you have to stay on top of that, but that's another topic. And traffic law. And then you get into skills, learning how to drive a car in an emergency situation safely, in a safe manner to keep yourself and the public safe when you're responding to these emergency situations. How to handle yourself from a physical standpoint. So you get into the handcuffing and control techniques if you do have to put your hands on somebody. And then there's basic firearm skills.
Right.
So you've got people that, everybody comes to law enforcement with their own past experiences. You got, we're talking Indiana. So
I grew up on the farm.
Yeah, there's
son.
rural guys that, they know how to shoot. And other
Sure.
people, hey, they were working at, Verizon 3 weeks ago, and now I got my police job.
Right.
And, now they've got a handgun in their hand. So, there's that basic firearms skills that they have to learn, and so much more, right? And how to communicate and how to conduct that traffic stop, how to park your vehicle, how are you going to approach, what side, how to position yourself, and how to control that traffic stop that's safe for the officer and safe for the person that you're pulling over. So there's a lot of things, and obviously these officers are tested on that.
Sure.
Not only from a written standpoint, from a practical standpoint, they have to actually demonstrate the skills. So you have all that information that the officers are taking in, that they're tested on, and then they move on to the next. And then there's first aid. There's just so many things. We could probably have a whole show on that
Right.
by itself. But there's a lot of topics to cover in a short amount of time. And it's basic, like we talked about. It's just the basic, you're not getting in. We're not going to make SWAT operators at this academy. Right. So it is the basic level.
So do you, when you see a guy come through, so your guys, as you explained before, have already been hired on by a local department somewhere, so they have a job.
Yes.
They come to you. You start working through the training. If you see that they are incompetent or deficient in an area, what is your job with that? Like, do you just say, well, you have to work on that, and you take them back, or can you glean those guys out and say, this guy should not be carrying the badge right now?
Yes. Well, as you mentioned, they're hired before they come to us.
Right.
So they have a job, and their departments send them to us to fulfill that basic training requirement, and then we put them through the training, and then if they fail a component of that training, then they're given the opportunity to do some remediation. And there's only so many opportunities there.
Yep. Because they do that within the 15-week
Yes.
period that
Yep.
they're up there?
Yes.
Okay.
If we can.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. If an officer fails to qualify with their firearm, obviously that's a problem.
Yeah.
So sometimes that failure, it may take that officer, hey, once the academy's done, you need to go home and practice some more, then come back and try to requalify.
Okay.
So they do not get their certificate.
I got
So
you.
then they have to come back and then actually pass that component. And same thing with a physical fitness component. They may, because we have an entrance and an exit test,
Okay.
and if they fail that exit, they don't get their certificate. They have to come back and pass that component. So there are some ways that they are responsible for the training that they're just not pushed
Right.
through.
So technically, you may not issue their certificate, but they could go back and work if their department, their local department, said, "Hey, don't worry about that. We're going to let you." They could trump you, basically. Is that?
Well,
am I hearing that or not?
In Indiana, once an officer is hired, they have 1 year to complete the law. And if they do not complete it in 1 year, they lose all arrest powers.
Oh, okay.
So
that's good to know.
So there's a time frame within Indiana. They can work, even if they failed a component of the academy, as long as they're still in that 1 year window. But
Gotcha.
once that 1 year expires, then they cannot make an arrest until they have that certificate.
Okay.
So there is.
So you have some leverage
Yes.
there that these guys need to keep working on that training and skill development.
Wow.
Yes.
So obviously, as we're recording this show, the last, golly, I'm sure you can say it more than I can, but I'd say the last year, 2 years, there's been a lot of negativity when it comes to our police officers, and there's been a lot of scrutiny. Now everyone has the video, on their phone. They can record at any given time, right? So the question I wanted to pose to you, so being in the training world, all the negativity that has gone on in our society, in our world currently with the police officers, how has that affected the training division? Because, obviously you guys have a certain criteria, the basics you have to teach. You have to teach these officers, correct? How has the scrutiny and the negativity changed the way in which you guys have gotten into the training?
That's a good question. Obviously, in law enforcement, we have to teach the skills to the officers. But on the flip side of that, society has changed. When I came into the civilian law enforcement world in 1988.
Yeah.
Now we're really.
You're an old man,
I know.
man.
I mean,
I'd hate to be as old as you.
I was born then.
1988, and going through the academy shortly after that. It's a lot different now, just because of the way society is. So, the society changes over time, and people want transparency. They want to know what you're doing. So, we have to, you can't go back 50 years and have it be like, well, I'm a police officer and this is the way it is and you can't ask me any questions. I mean, it doesn't work like that anymore. So we have to still do our job regardless of the negativity. There are kind of peaks and valleys.
Sure.
Like we look at our history, in the 60s and how this country, we made some changes then, with race things happening back then. So there's kind of peaks and valleys in policing, and we just have to stay diligent and just press on and do what,
I would have to think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think like back in 88 and before 90 and stuff, going through the academy was very much skills about the actual physical police work.
Yes.
and not so much about the psychology, the communication, the mental health. Is that accurate? Because like I can just like when I first started in education, it was about how you teach math or science, and you spent your time studying your area of expertise.
Yeah.
Now you better spend your time learning how to manage all of the kiddos, which is, again, you have to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
But when you graduated from education school, you did not know how to handle the kid who was throwing books at you, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, just the role of a police officer and first responder in 2021 is so much different, just expectations-wise.
Yeah.
The hats that we have to put on, and, you know, you hit it with, you show up to a scene and you have to be able to decipher, is this guy under the influence of an intoxicant, or is he have some mental, is he in the middle of a mental crisis? So, so there's, in 1988, there was very little training on that. Crisis intervention
you
training.
Basically came in and you owned the situation,
yes, and
you arrested people or did whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And it worked back then, but, you know, times are changing, and our role is changing.
How was your academy? Because I know for us, I mean, 20 years ago, our Dayton Academy was 6 weeks, and now it's 24 weeks. So we have greatly increased our time because, just so you're saying, you know, we have to adjust with the way that society is adjusting. So you currently it's 15 weeks. What did it used to be?
When I went through, and we're talking, over 30 years ago now, it was 12 weeks.
Okay.
And before that, of course, it was 10 or whatever.
Sure.
So it's incrementally getting longer, and it wouldn't surprise me. And again, I'm not, saying anything out of turn. I'm not saying anything that's
questionable
here. It is. I can foresee the academy eventually taking longer.
Sure. Yeah. It's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
You got more to put in there.
Yeah.
When you, what is your thought on all of this stuff that cameras are now everywhere? What are your thoughts on body cams, on cruiser cams and stuff like that? I have my thought on that as a classroom teacher, but what is your thought on that?
I think there's pros and cons
Sure.
to that. Obviously, the pro is, you hear of officers getting accused of misconduct or whatever, and so many times that camera has really helped that officer in those situations. So from that aspect, great. And even from a critical incident standpoint, where a police action shooting, having that video can be very good. Now, where some of the cons, with today's society and social media, everybody having a camera, if I'm a police officer out there doing my job, I have to assume that I'm being...
Yes. Yeah.
I have to assume that it's happening. And if there's any type of force being used, obviously that camera is going to be rolling, and then it can be uploaded to YouTube or whatever in seconds.
Yes. Yeah.
So now,
and edited any way it needs to be edited.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then it gets put out for the public to consume, and then a whole narrative happens.
Yeah.
And then that officer or that agency, because obviously the investigation hasn't been completed, so the department can't say anything about it until it's complete, and then it takes a life of its own. And with these cameras, they are typically just short snippets of a situation, so you don't have the full context.
Leading up to it.
Everything that transpired, and it's not the same as what the officer sees, because it's two-dimensional, it's not three-dimensional.
Right.
There's only one sense, and there's different frame rates. More things we could get into if we had the time, but it's not the same as what the officer has experienced at that time. So there's a lot of things with the camera, both good and bad.
Which is, we talk about all the time, like doing the Monday morning quarterback. So you sit there and turn on YouTube, and you can find any video of a police officer, what appears to going rogue, right? They're not doing what they're supposed to be trained. You can do the same. Like, we'll sit around, we'll watch YouTube videos, like, why are the firemen not putting water on the fire? Like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
Right? But just what you were saying, like, you're not that officer. man, there's so many times I'm like, I wasn't on that fire scene. I don't know what those guys were looking at. That camera view is almost a tunnel vision, right? You only get a snip.
Yes.
You're only getting a small image of what actually was going on. And it's so easy to point the finger and say, why didn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Why didn't she do this? But man, unless you're there seeing what those officers are seeing, it's hard to put yourself in their shoes, because not everyone has the 15 weeks of training. Not everyone has the firearms training. Like that training that police officer are trained to that level, man, it's there for a reason. And if you don't have that, it's hard to put yourself in that right mind frame to know what that officer is going through, what he's thinking, his experience, what is the experience telling him. Mm-hmm. So I just think it's good to note that, man, that those cameras are there for the protection of the officers, but they're not, man, we need to get away from this idea of just pointing the finger that the officer's always in the negative, they're always in the wrong, because that's where our society has made this. And obviously, I'm in the first responder world, so I feel for you guys. Like, I feel the scrutiny you guys are going through, this idea of defunding the police. Like, if you don't know, I'm going to be the one that's going to have to do what he's doing to get rid of him. Like,
save Kyle. Save Kyle.
Don't get rid of them. Like, and I just, man, there's so much that we as society need to realize, that when we point our fingers, like, try and put yourself. We are just human. We're men and women trying to serve the public at the end of the day, and we fail at it just like everybody. Yes. I'm sure Merle has many times when he failed as a teacher, as a counselor. Yep. Like, you fail, and that's part of learning. That's part of being a human being. But man, if we continue to watch these videos and point the finger and the negativity that's come from it, we're not uplifting the very people that are trying to serve the public.
Yeah, Tom, we've talked about training police officers, which is always going to be important, right? That's the part we can control. Mm-hmm. But I also think it's really important that we start getting the message out to help parents. Part of what we do here on Strong Dads is, specifically, we talk to dads, but we do moms as well. And the idea of, what patterns and trends do you see that parents need to start jumping on and helping on the parenting realm? All problems start back in the home. I'm convinced 100% across the board. It's not a political problem. It's not a socioeconomic problem. It's not a racist problem. It's none of those problems. It all starts at the home. So what do you guys see in police work that if you could talk to mom and dads, like, man, teach your kids this and things will go a whole lot better for them and the police?
Great point. First of all, we can take real life data and look at fathers being present in the home in relation to incarceration rates, and again, you can get into a whole.
We've done shows on it.
So you know what I'm talking about here, and I think from decades ago, and probably Merle, you can appreciate that more than Kyle, just because of your age.
Age has come up a lot today.
If you got in trouble from a teacher or, heaven forbid, a police officer, and your parents found out, there were some.
You might know my dad.
Yeah, I know your dad.
And my dad's a short dude.
Yeah, and my dad.
And I knew your dad.
My dad.
Your dad was shorter than my dad. And I would have not touched either of those boys because they were both a little bit crazy in a fun way.
Yeah, for sure. So there was going to be discipline, or there were going to be consequences.
Yeah,
there were going to be definitely consequences at home. Not saying that there aren't now with these parents, but I think that if parents teach their children, especially when it comes to first responders or law enforcement, not to be so quick to try to find fault with what's happening in the situation, just calm down. And I'll take a traffic stop, for example.
Yeah.
A person gets pulled over, a young person, and they feel like, I wasn't speeding, and they want to get into an argument, and the officer's just trying to, hey, I need to see your hands because he doesn't know, or he or she doesn't know what. So, in the aspects of dealing with law enforcement, comply with what the officer is telling you to do. There is a time and a place if we need to talk about, the reasons behind and the outcome. Yep. But you have to
comply and then complain.
And then exactly.
Well,
exactly.
The thing that I think oftentimes we miss in this country is we have a system to do that.
Yes.
Our court system was so well thought out compared to so many other countries. Where, in many countries you get pulled over, there could be a risk of death right there by a police officer not liking you and just total tyranny taking place. But we have a system. Let the officer do his job, and then let the program of the court system, that's where you get your opportunity to state your case. And we have lost the idea of teaching our kids that, hey, you'll get your day in court, so to speak. But when it's not emotional. And so I can appreciate what you're saying there.
And obviously we know that kids learn from their parents. So when it comes to and we're talking about law enforcement today, so if the parents are at home talking about police officers in a negative light because maybe they had a bad experience with a police officer, and then that is being on display, and a child at a young age sees that, and then as they progress and get older, they're having the same thought process.
Derogatory names and stuff like that.
So their overall perception of law enforcement is negative, and then that only leads to problems potentially down the road.
Yeah. Wow. Good stuff. So is there anything that you would like the public to know about police officers in general or police work that maybe they just you guys see people don't understand this, and here's an opportunity to say here's something we wish people knew more about?
I wish when people saw incidents that occur on the news or it's publicized that an officer has allegedly used excessive force, and this is just one topic that we're talking about because it's such a hot topic in the past few years, that they would not be so quick to prejudge. Because as Kyle, as you stated, there's other things. Police officers are not robots.
Right.
We're human beings, and there are so many things that come into play because a police officer, they have to deal with a lot of things. And one of their responsibilities is making sure that the people that they're dealing with are safe as well as themselves. So if they would just not be so quick to prejudge an incident and wait till the investigation is complete, because typically there's more than what the camera shows and there's more stuff. So when the public sees these things, and sometimes even politicians, they jump to conclusions, it can feed an unnecessary negative towards law enforcement. And then what happens is, if that eventually goes to court and then the officer is found to be not violating anything, not guilty or whatever, the public can't understand, well, how did he get off? Because
well, like you said before, the narrative was built.
The narrative, so they don't understand, and then they think a lot of things. So don't be so quick to prejudge. Know that there are a lot of factors involved. An officer has a lot of things that he or she has to take in consideration on every stop or contact. I remember talking to people, especially on traffic stops. I will talk to people, and they said, I got pulled over this one time for running a stop sign, and there were 2 or 3 officers that showed up. I felt like I was a criminal. All I did was run a stop sign. Well, there's a lot of things to take in with that. When a police officer pulls someone over, they have no idea who they're pulling over.
Right, yeah.
Is it a convicted felon? Does the person have bad harm? And there's safety in numbers. So on the surface, it may feel overkill, but it's really safety for everyone involved. So there's other things behind what we do that is there for the safety of the public and the officer. So that's just one thing I would.
It's not ironic that I feel as a society, we generally speaking, we want to be innocent until proven guilty. Well, I guarantee you, every police officer wants the same, that the same respect, that the officer wants to feel innocent until proven guilty. And the problem is with these video cameras that a lot of times that narrative you're talking about, it's guilty until proven innocent, and you get this preconception, this notion that every officer is bad, and the same in the public's eyes. We don't want an officer to feel like I don't want an officer to think that I'm guilty before he's even done his investigation or she's done her investigation. The same can be said about the officer. I mean, officers want to feel like they're doing the right thing, and the problem is a lot of times, again, we're quick to say you're guilty, and then when that narrative does come out, the full story, it's hard to change that perspective that, oh, the officer wasn't necessarily in the wrong spot. And just like every profession, there's bad officers,
Yes.
there's bad teachers, there's bad firemen. Like, you have that everywhere. And we need to get out of this notion that every police officer needs to be straight-laced and doing everything exactly the right way. Like, it's not, we're humans, right? We're flawed by nature.
I think as you talk about this, all of a sudden I'm having flashbacks of all of the years that I worked in the school systems. And prior to that, I worked in a psychiatric hospital.
I didn't know that, Merle.
Yeah,
Really?
I did about a year and a half in a psych hospital. And then it was the best training for my education work. It was far better than any class I ever took working in a psych hospital. And I did that for a year and a half. And then so my point is over all my years of being in the counseling world, I have been, not occasionally, I have been kicked, spit in the face, bit, punched. And I'm talking about a pretty middle-class neighborhood.
Sure.
Okay. But I'm also talking about now in our schools, we have kids with more mental strains and issues and challenges than ever before. The day of just like, well, remove them and put them in a different school. No, that didn't happen. And so as the guy in charge of that, I will say that certain years I quit wearing ties to work because they were becoming my noose. All right. And so I stopped wearing ties. And here's my point with this whole thing, though. You can't, be slow to judge what it feels like when all of a sudden you get spit at right in the face or you get punched right in the face. That's the human side. And I mean, through practice, I was able to take a deep breath. But let me tell you, especially early on, your systems just go off, right? Your systems go off. And so I think until you're in those situations, you just have to really be hesitant to judge what you would do, the armchair quarterback. Well, here's what they should have done. Yeah. Man, when people are just flat out punching you right in the face, other instincts kick in.
Yeah.
And I know you guys get that on a very intensive level, and with weapons as well. I've not had other than a stick and a few computers and books thrown at me, I've not had a gun drawn on me. And so anyway, I just kind of felt like people need to understand that a whole different level of emotion is taking place there.
Man, that's it. This is good stuff. The part of the reason why we wanted you in, Tom, man, this conversation needs to happen. Like, more conversations. Man, officers are just human beings. Talk to them. Treat them like human beings. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're not, just like you're saying, they're not robots. These conversations that we're having around this table, man, have those conversations in your community. When an officer is sitting there, obviously approach, accordingly. But, like, talk to them. Ask them these questions. Like, hey, I saw this one time on YouTube. What do you, these are good conversations. Like, that's how we learn. That's how we grow and develop as public servants, right? Like, we need to have these conversations. These conversations need to happen more often. Like, let's start putting these conversations on YouTube and have people talk about those conversations. Hey, did you see that conversation that Merle and Kyle had, with Tom? Like, these are the conversations that need to be put out there. More people need to see these conversations, which trickle into other conversations in hopes to, again, just take the badge off, take the hat off, set your judgment aside for a second and actually just have that normal conversation.
Yeah, police officers are members of the community.
Right.
I mean, they're they want to be included.
Yep.
They want to have these conversations.
Yeah, they want to be able to have their kids go to the local school. They want to go to the local church. They want to do those things. Something kind of comes to mind, the power play that sometimes people think that police feel like they get from the badge. And so I have run into people, not necessarily police officers, but by a certain position in life, they come off with an arrogance or just jerks. Okay, yeah. So what kind of talk do you guys have about humility within the police force? About you represent the badge, so do it well. I'm sure you see an occasional ego issue, and like. My boys are in the military training. One of the very first things that they do is they try to knock your ego right down between your shoulders.
Yeah, and in this line of work, that's very important. because, and you've experienced, I've experienced, I see officers, that just the way they present themselves, if you didn't know that officer, first impressions are so important.
Right.
And, most people only have a few professional contacts with police officers through the course of their lifetime. Traffic ticket or a call for service or something. Most people don't deal with police professionally a lot. So officers, and this is part of the training that they get, officers need to make the most out of that first impression. And going back to, when an officer first starts as opposed to when they get a few years on, just one of the examples in the academy that we talk about is writing tickets. There's a lot of people out there that think, officers are out there, they've got quotas, they need to write tickets, so on and so forth. Well, in actuality, there's nothing like that in the academy that says you have to write tickets. Public safety is important.
Breaking news here.
Yeah, breaking news. It's not happening. You may get pulled over and get a ticket for speeding, and you may curse that officer, but what you may not know is 3 weeks ago there was a bad crash there because there have been a lot of speeding violations, and the officer's just trying to keep it safe. So we try to teach the humility. Like I said, tickets are expensive.
Yeah, I
Yes,
just
they
got
are.
one.
I mean,
And you
tickets
whined about it.
Well, yeah, I did. I was in uniform. I thought that was like a free pass, right?
tickets are expensive, and you give somebody a ticket, that can change the family budget, for a while.
Yeah.
So, not everything is about, all right, I'm an officer, I'm paid to enforce the law. It's not black and white. There are some moving parts to this. There are some variables that can affect certain things. Now, obviously, there's some things there's no debate on. A victim of domestic violence. There's you have to take care of business and things like that. But officers need to learn from that basic level that there's humility to this job, and what the main purpose is to protect and serve their community, not to go out there and see how many arrests they can make.
Right.
So, and again, that is the time component. The more time you get on, I think the more you realize that, and the better training program back home. There's a lot of different ways to learn that, but it's very important for an officer to
I think that's an
away.
important part too. Like locally, whoever the main police officer is in charge, he can set the mood. And if he comes off with an arrogance and kind of promotes that versus, hey, all of you take a deep breath.
Yes.
You're all just people. Treat these people that you're dealing with like people, and things will go a lot better.
Yes.
So I think sometimes you see certain things in departments where there's a level of just, I'm using the word arrogance, but just a stubbornness or self-righteousness because of the badge or whatever. And so... I
for
think
sure.
that could be worked on sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they just made me think of this. So we, similar in our academy, and you were talking about the humility aspect of it and just being nice to the public, right? So they always tell us, like, you're in a public's eye for 15 minutes, right? Just be nice to them for that short period of time. And I think that's really, like, on paper it sounds good, but similar to the fire world, the police officers, like, you may be getting ready to sit down and eat, and a call comes in, right? And you gotta go. And we always say, like, it would be hard. It would be really hard if I missed 2 meals and I didn't get to sleep. It'd be really hard for me to be nice to my wife, right? And I think the same can be said about with police officers. Like, golly, like you may be sitting down getting ready to eat because we are human. We have to eat, right? Some people think we're just robots. You just go, and then a call comes in, and so that officer might not be in the best of mood because they just missed a meal, as most people would be as well, right? And I think it just goes back to that the previous conversation we have about, like, man, we're just human. Like, understand that officer is not looking to, like, I got you, right? Sometimes they're just not in a good mood because maybe they missed the meal, maybe they haven't slept very, and I just that human aspect I just keep coming back to, because you're not robots.
Yeah, and to your point, and society in itself holds first responders, police officers to a very high level, as it should be, because there's a lot of responsibility there.
Yes.
Right.
But as you said, police officers are still human. They're still, they're still problems at home.
Absolutely.
There's still financial problems. There's still, hey, my kids are this. There's real life stuff that happens even when you're at work. So that affects all of us. So it does play into it. Yeah. So there's just so many different aspects to the job that if more people understood that, I think it would help.
Now, do you guys do ride-alongs? Or with if maybe not? Obviously, you're in a training academy, but are the majority of the police jurisdiction in Indiana are as a citizen? Could I do a ride-along?
I can't speak for the jurisdictions, but we did years ago here, and I hear that other agencies are able to do that. I can't give you a percentage on how many can, but yes, and I know that agencies welcome that.
As they should, yeah.
But typically, from my experience, what I found was the people that wanted to ride along weren't the people that had a problem with the police. Right, they were like, hey, this is cool. I want to know what you guys do. And they were, they wanted more of it. Not the people that like, I think you guys are this or that. I want to see what you really do. That typically didn't happen.
Because that would be a great way to truly, I mean, we encourage our citizens to do a ride along with us. See what we do every day. We're there for 24 hours. See what our 24-hour shift looks like. Like, come ride with us, and you get a great depiction of what we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tom, I want to thank you just for your time, but I have one question for you, okay? We have watched, I will call it, maybe you'll correct me, but a mass exodus of police out of the police work. Retirements, severance pays, whatever we can do to work it out to get out. A lot of the stress, the negative publicity, just worry, right? I mean, I can't even go out with my family anymore because I get attacked kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So what would your words of encouragement or advice be to a younger person who is basically Tom Moore in 2021 as an 18, 19, 20-year-old? What would you say to them if they're considering police work?
I would say, first of all, if you wanted to do the job of a police officer, first of all, you have to be thick-skinned because you're going to get the criticism, and there's no secret behind it. Right. Even if times were great politically and socially, you would still get the criticism for the job that you signed on for. So you have to be thick-skinned. If you really want to do the job, learn as much as you can so you know kind of what to expect. Of course, you won't know fully until you're, fully into it. But there's a lot of law enforcement officers that have family members that are first responders or police officers. So learn from those, kind of figure out exactly what the job entails. Because there are sacrifices. Any first responder can tell you you're going to miss some family time. There's things that first responders will sacrifice. But if it's something that you truly want to do, you have to put your head down and you have to still do the job. I mean, there's men and women in blue that through all of this are still showing up to work. They're still doing the job. Although there are a lot of officers leaving, there's a lot of officers that are still doing the job every day, regardless of the negativity. And hats off to those people. Anybody that wants to do the job of a first responder or law enforcement officer, I applaud them because it's a difficult job. And the longer I'm in it, the more I realize how difficult it is for someone first starting. Yeah. But it is a noble profession.
Yes, it is.
And it is something that if you feel that you really want to do, then don't let the negativity deter you from doing it, because it will eventually turn. In my personal opinion, it will eventually come back to where, there will be a little more respect, I would hope, for the profession and just for the rule of law itself from what we're seeing now, because we can't have a society that is lawless. Right. So, don't get discouraged.
Won't have a society.
Exactly. We won't.
Lawless.
So you keep your head down. If this is what you want to do, don't be deterred. And if you get turned down from application or something, because a lot of times, you may not get hired on your first choice. It may take several attempts, and sometimes people get discouraged with that, and they're like, well, I guess this wasn't meant to be. But if it's really what you want to do, pursue it.
Yeah. Well, that's good words. I noticed all of these things, especially with public work and that, sometimes the teachers are on the chopping block. No teacher can do anything right. Teachers are ruining our country. They're educating our kids wrong, and they're under scrutiny, and everybody wants cameras in the classrooms, and liability issues and stuff. And so I watched probably over the last 7 or 8 years what I would call an exodus of teachers out of the teaching profession. But my greater concern actually was not those leaving, but the great reduction in people entering the profession. Mm-hmm. And we watched education in schools, colleges, their enrollment dropped in half. Like, in our own state here, Ball State, we watched those numbers go down to a fraction of what they had been over many, many years. And I think, as you said, this all leads all of the, and this, it kind of gets into this cancel culture kind of thing. If you put your self-righteousness above everyone else and you're the judge and you want to kick out everybody who's bad, this is what you get, right? You get, okay, now we don't have any good teachers because nobody wants to go into that profession. We don't have any good police officers because nobody wants to go in there. We don't have any good firefighters. We don't have any good politicians. That's another place. Like, why would you want to go into politics and just get destroyed there? Yeah. So it is something as a culture that we're going to have to really wrap our head around, or we're going to continue to pay dearly for it at a societal level.
Yeah, totally agree.
Tom, I want to thank you for your time.
Yep.
It's been real, and it's just good to hear from the inside actually you guys are kind of human. It is kind of good to hear that.
We actually have a personality.
Yeah. Hang on, let me hit the play button here on you, robot. So, Kyle, any final words out of you?
Yeah, Tom, man, I this conversation is good. I love getting around the kitchen table, as we say at work, and just talking. We're just three guys, three men, just trying to figure out this thing they call life. And we all play a different role in society. And yours happens to be a police officer. Merle happens to be whatever he is. But
that was disrespect.
This is a good conversation, and just really encourage you guys, share the heck out of this message. We want this word. We want Tom's message to get out. So share this with other strong dads. Share this with other people. If you have somebody that doesn't necessarily respect or doesn't have this similar mindset, man, share the heck out of this message, because similar to what you're saying, man, we have to raise up the next generation. We have to raise up future generations that maybe you don't like the profession of the police officer, but at the end of the day, we have to learn to respect that profession and what those guys men and women are doing. So share this message. Give us a 5-star rating on all the platforms out there. Like and subscribe us on YouTube. Reach out to Merle and Linda if you guys have questions. If you need help in your marriage and your personal life with your kids, reach out to Merle and Linda at Rock Solid Families. They would love to come alongside of you and coach and counsel you guys with that. So really appreciate you guys.
All right.
Thanks so much for Casey's Outdoor Solution and Crimer's Beer House for coming alongside of us. Greatly do appreciate that.
Man, you just knocked it all out. You're just a runaway storm right here. Boom. Go out there and be a strong dad. Thank you.
Hey, this is Kyle Carver from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Crimer's Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Crimer's Beer House was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Crimer's Beer House.